Stay right there. What are you waiting for? Kill him! Kill them both! No, wait a minute. Is it money you're after? I'll give you as much as you want.
May the saints forgive you, because I won't.
Don't be.
Okay, so I'll do a little intro. I have a really interesting guest who I've long wanted on the pod, and who I asked quite I don't know, like 2 months ago, and they weren't sure, but now they're on, which is usually what happens for me. I'm kind of charming, I think, maybe. And so thank you so much, Dickie. I really appreciate that you decided to come on, and I think we'll have a really interesting conversation. And um, I want to just say that you have an incredible account. I know that you're on private right now, and so I don't want to like blow it up or anything, but you've got like a lot going on, and you're a busy person. So I want you to introduce yourself in the ways that you want to, or however you want to. But I just want to say that I'm quite fortunate to get you on. So thank you so much, and I really appreciate it.
Oh, well, I've wanted to, but at first I said, well, I'm not going to do any podcast because I don't have anything to say. But, I think that's sort of silly. That's all what you make it. But this one I want to do, this is probably the only one, just because I feel like you and me kind of had a little bit of a kismet. We get each other because I'm out here in Hawaii and we just kind of get each other. So, but I'm Dickie. I write high fantasy, horror, sci-fi, slipstream, and I'm currently doing essays editor for APCON, the great Apocalypse Confidential.
AppCon Trinity. I don't know what happened, but I don't know. Just something, obviously something awesome in the astrology for me. So
For sure.
I do love that you're a fiction writer. I think you're familiar enough with like my episode structure, or like the way I kind of have writers appear, and then I'll have like what we'll call like occultists or mystics appear, and like I keep it. I like to have a lot of variation. I like a lot
Yeah,
of flavors.
that's
So
true.
so I feel like fiction writers can bring everything. They kind of, because there is a mysticism in it. There's a mysticism in writing. And I talked about this with Dustin. Shout out Dustin
Can
and
I
friends.
please just add one thing about Dustin
Absolutely.
Cole? All right. I didn't know anything about Dustin Cole. I didn't know who he was. I still operate in the old fashioned way that unless you like say hello to me or something, unless you tell it to me, I don't really know unless I come across it. So he had been off Twitter. I saw him share a small snippet of an essay. I immediately go to Substack. I sent him a message. I said, I like this sample of writing. Would you please send me an essay? He was so nice. He sent me so much stuff. It was all great. But I just thought that was really cool that even with just that tiny little bit of writing, no other information, I was like, yes, he's a great writer. So that was just thrilling for me to get this essay of his going. I just had to I had to brag on him a little bit.
No, it's okay because I brag on the episode I did with him all the time, as you know, because I obviously was like, listen to the episode as like
Yeah.
an entree to come on. No, I'm really proud of that episode, and I'm really happy that I got to meet him. I think it was like, I'm not really I like dabble in fragment poetry, and I've done slams, and I have a chapbook like from 20 million years ago and all that shit.
I
But
mean, it sounds like you're a writer, but no, I get you.
I mean, I've never called myself a poet.
Yeah.
I always just like played with the idea. I never felt like I never really felt like I belonged in that, but I just felt like after meeting him, I reassessed. So shout out
Yeah.
Dustin Cole,
Shout out Dustin.
buy his book After Sunstone, and shout out to the whole Furthest Heaven crew because they've shown me a lot of love, and I really appreciate it. Anyways, I'm sorry, Dickie, about that. I didn't mean to fanboy on Dustin Cole, but
No,
he'll love it
please
when he hears
do
back.
no, please do because for me, my biggest commitment right now, as far as writing, is doing this editing. I'm a fiction writer, but what really like drives me is finding the other writers, connecting with them, and hopefully coming with some really strong essays. That to me is more exciting than my own work. It just is. That's all I'll say about that.
Well, not to blow you up, but we did talk a little bit about this, and you even mentioned it in regards to Dustin, just that you can tell, like someone who I call it, I don't know, this might be too out there for you, Dickie, but I kind of, for me, I relate words to colors. So
Yeah.
if someone is a good writer, I can sometimes, not always, but sometimes I can see colors in their writing.
Hmm.
And the better the writing, the more precise the color, or the more
I
like
like that.
arranged it is, like a composition. So I talked
Hmm.
to a little bit about this with Dustin too. So it's not so out there, but I mean, I got some feedback that maybe I was like having a stroke or something. But I just
No.
wanna I just wanna say no. So I think that sometimes people can appraise people's writing from very small amounts if the person is like tuned in or tapped in
If
or
you're tapped in and tuned in, you can. Yes, sir. I believe
yeah,
it.
I agree. But why don't we talk about your own work? Because I feel
Okay.
like that's a really interesting place to start, just as we don't have to
Mhm.
get into like magic with a capital M, but I think that
Mhm.
fiction is sort of the foundational basis of all magic in a way. And so I think it's interesting to hear about writers' processes and like their influences and sort of their origin stories, like a superhero in a way.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm happy to talk about it. It's not very often you get to because it's just not something that comes up, and if people aren't writers themselves, they necessarily want to hear about it. So yeah, it's nice to have a place to reflect on where you came from, where you're going. But yeah, I mean, I took a long hiatus from writing. I've only recently got back into it because I started reading Burial and APCON, and I was like, "You can't be serious! This stuff is so good," and it got me excited. And I said to myself, "It doesn't matter what you're doing, because I'm very busy. Yes, I'm work on this farm here in Hawaii. Um, I've got family and everything. We've all got stuff, but I was like, it doesn't matter. No matter what you have got going on, you have got to find a way to get back to it, carve out time for it. No excuses, because I didn't realize that people were making such amazing stuff. I didn't know. Um, I had kind of lost hope a little bit because I went through a writing program forever ago, probably 20 years ago, and I wasn't like crazy about that. I mean, it was fine, but I got discouraged because I wanted to do genre, and they were very, very discouraging about that.
Well, I love that you do genre. Let me just say that. I'm a very obviously, I'm a very genre friendly because I think that the conventions in genre, I know for all the literary people listening, for you, this will be like very undergrad, but just bear with me. Uh, I think genre it has the ability because of its conventions to also break literary conventions like that are more highbrow normative. So I think it's actually more interesting to write in genre. That's my personal opinion, but Dickie, you can disagree or fight me or whatever you want.
I mean, I don't. It's subjective, but for me, that's what I like to read. I read a little. I literally read a little bit of everything. I always have all my life. Every day, I make time to read, and I'll read anything. I'm like not picky, but the reason why I work in genre is because I just think it's so creative and it excites me. But it's just subjective. It's to each their own, and that's what makes it like so much fun. Is just the different styles of people. I want to work on basically a project about everybody that's in online lit because just when you have all their works together and you're able to profile that, it's incredible because these the my quote unquote peers, these are the best writers. I read everything, I pay attention, we all know it, and I'm gonna start like treating them like they're the authors that they are, which includes, as far as I'm concerned, doing some theory with their writing. That's how I feel about it.
Well, obviously that is clearly true because I'm drawing from the pool of online lit, at least for some portion of the show. And so obviously I
Mhm.
also find them extremely competent, interesting, and dynamic, which I think are all from my perspective as more of like on the occult tip, I think that those are really important positionalities for a magician or a writer. Maybe those are the same thing. I'm not saying that anyone who is a
Mhm.
writer inherently is like doing magic, but in some ways of thinking, like in a lot of contemporary magical ways of thinking, penning fiction, penning the imaginal sort of framework for reality. Yeah, I understand that it's speculative, it's fictional, it's not quite real, but there is, as you know, I think you know this, and I think this is why maybe you agreed to come on, but again, you can disagree or fight me. I think there is a kind of co-creative mechanism that
Oh,
happens.
I
Not
think
not
so
always, but
too. Yeah, not
okay, good.
always, but it's a kind of support. I feel it. I think we all do. I don't, and I'm not even. I'm gonna stop right here because it's so special. I don't even want to talk about it. I have to look out the side of my eye at it. you know, it's just something too special. To just like share these people's work from all over. Come on, it's too cool.
It is a very cool time. It is very much a time of synthesis, a time of like I call the show like the Aether Wave Archive, and I feel like that is also what's happening with other projects. Not to compare my small thing to someone else's, but
Hmm.
I'm just saying to sort of record, like be an archivist of this history, which is very much like a history. And it's a time of like all these people coming together from all over the world. Like you are like I'm literally on the opposite side of North America. Like I'm on the farthest east coast that you can go on my own island, not my own island, but on a different island.
Yeah.
So it is kind of interesting, but it's funny too because you live in Hawaii. I've called
Yes.
and like I'm associated with the term Hapaborea, which is interesting because I am mixed, like I am Hapa, to use a Hawaiian
Okay.
term. And
Yeah.
right, and so we did vacation a lot in Hawaii. So I do have kind of a
Oh,
weird
yes.
connection. My dad's Asian. So when we would go,
Yeah.
people would always be like, "Oh, he's a local boy." But then he
Oh,
speaks and
yeah.
then yeah, but then he speaks and then it all goes away, right? But yeah, it's weird to like that you have that connection and like I have that connection and it's like but we're coming together. What I'm trying to say is we're coming together on the aether wave right now. We're coming together in synthesis.
Mm-hmm.
We're coming together in this like crazy dialogue and seeing what we can make of it. And I think that's like the power of like all the online lit, especially. I mean, I obviously love APCON, but there
I
is
love
so
it.
much. But there is so much. There's so many interesting sort of literary, small and larger lit magazines online. So, yeah, it's a cool time. It's a cool, interesting time.
I think it is, and I don't do like a scene report or anything. It's something different, and we can move on from that. I just wanted to be said that like this is no flash in the pan. Like I'm sorry, but what people are coming up with is just it's so good, and yeah, I'm proud to be part of it.
Well, let's talk about a little bit. Okay, I'll ask you. So you've listened to, I don't know how many episodes in full, but several episodes at least. Familiarity.
Mm-hmm.
So you were saying that you didn't want to do any podcasts, but then you kind of softened to mine, which obviously I am grateful for very much.
Oh, thank
But like,
you. Well, I appreciate you asking me to do it.
well, I'm a collector of interesting people, you could say. Um,
Mm-hmm.
what would you say, like, because you know that I'm a magician or whatever you want to call it, sorcerer on the carnal ground, as I joke about, but it's also
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of true too. Um, like in which ways do you relate to like the mystical, the spiritual, the otherworldly, the super mundane, whatever you want to call it? Like
Oh yeah,
give
of
me some
course
Dickie
I
lore
do.
and like however you want to fill in the contours of that.
Jen, I live deep in this jungle. Like, believe me, I live it. Um, the spiritual is superseding the physical in some ways for me. Physical, I do have on this island. I work a physical job. Um, I have both here, and it's something really, really special. But the reason, a big part of why I wanted to do with you, not only because I love your account and I love your sensibilities and that you're so nice and you made me feel very comfortable, but most importantly, you have been to Hawaii. I do not have to catch you up on anything here, which I'm happy to do. I love to talk about this island to anybody, but you're on the level because you've been here. So to me, it's just easier for me to speak with you because if you've spent any time here, you understand how transformative it is. And I understand how that sounds, but like the past 2 or 3 years, I've really put everything I had into being changed by this place. And every time I give it anything, it gives me back 10 times of what I've gave it. If that's not a spiritual practice, I don't know what is.
Well, I appreciate the kind words for me. Wasn't fishing, I promise. But so thank you. But I agree with you. I happen to live on a volcanic cone. Like it's like almost like Hawaii from like 5 million
Mhm.
years ago, but cold, obviously. Um, but it is a volcanic cone. So I collect like obsidians on the river, like huge chunks of them, the huge, huge, big ones.
Wow.
And I understand in a way, like the dynamism of living on a kind of geologically active ground is so powerful.
It
And
is.
of course you do gardening. Well, I'm calling it gardening. That's kind of I don't
Mhm.
mean it in a pejorative. I mean it in like a cultivation. We'll call it cultivation. That is a
Mhm.
spiritual practice. There's absolutely no question for me. Like as a if I'm going to call myself like a speculative Kabbalist, I won't go hardcore,
Mhm.
but if you there is an idea that if you garden, you're actually cultivating the Sephiroth of Netzach, which is the garden, which is like the garden that, if you want to call it, God gave us. So
Yeah.
you're kind of co-creating, not
Yes.
not taking over. You're not like saying, "Oh, I am God." You're
Mhm.
utilizing like the materia medica, kind of like the phenomenological beauty of the world that is also ephemeral and transient, as flowers often are. But flowers are also the
Mm-hmm.
best metaphor for, in my personal opinion, like we talked a little bit about this, like the green flashing
Mm-hmm.
and the pink ray, I think
Yes.
maybe. And so pink is kind of like a color that, for me and how I see it, it
Mm-hmm.
kind of proves like the supernatural, the super mundane, God, if you want to call it that, that is real. Like pink
Yeah.
is like the definitive proof that that is real, because it doesn't
Yes,
really
you
exist, right?
you love colors, and when I think about like different things you shared, I do think of like those bright blues and the pinks. Like you understand.
Well, the thing you said another color that I really like, which is like that bright blue, like a turquoise.
Yeah.
And like the Hawaii has such a pristine blue sky and such a blue-green ocean. And those are so
Yeah.
fundamentally important for the understanding of like what, if you want to call it the multiverse or what the world is.
Mhm.
For me, I'm just saying for me. So as a speculative Kabbalist, for me that would mean Hesed, or loving kindness.
Yeah.
So and that is God's primary quality. Like in a way of thinking, is like that
Mhm.
you see the ocean, it's infinite in its magnitude, it's infinite in its potential. And even the
Yeah.
storm, it can be considered the supernal ocean. So there's like immediate relationship between that blue-green water and sort of the blue-green sky and the clouds. And there's like the polarity, the tension between the polarities, and there's lightning. Even in that, that is like the magnanimous force that pulls us forward. And that's and it's also
Yeah,
related to
it
Jupiter. I
definitely
should have said that,
does.
but yeah.
No, Jupiter's super you get it, yes, and the night sky out here is like nothing I've ever seen, and I mean, I post about it, and I don't think people think I'm joking because 'cause I've done readings from this little field cabin. I've literally been living in a field cabin for over a year, like, in a just a very simple, screened-in cabin. This cabin is made from, somebody's lanai and agricultural tarp and screen. So, there's very little between me and the elements, and that's how I wanted it, and I've rode out a hurricane in this little cabin. I've rode out, 30 full days of tropical rain. I've rode out forest fire in it. I'm not saying you have to take it to that degree, but for me, uh having that absolute closeness with nature, that's what I wanted. I've done other times like this. I'm not gonna, like, talk about it too much because it's sorta obnoxious. I mean, but I have. I've done it in Tennessee, I've done it in Kentucky, I've done it multiple different places where I'll just go and live on the land as much as possible, and every time I do it, there's a certain number of days where you will see a change in yourself, and it is a permanent change, and it's like leveling up. And I would almost say if you have an interest in it and you have a means, do it, try it. That's your soul and spirit telling you that you can do it and maybe you should do it, even if it's only like for the weekend. Just try it, you know.
I mean, I agree, Dickie. The reality is like I live alone on a mountain. It does change you.
Yeah,
It's
it
like
does.
very hermeneutic, right? The closeness with
Yep.
nature, the closeness with the elements. Absolutely.
Mhm.
I agree. Mountain retreat for everybody.
Mhm.
So I guess that's a great place to ask you, in what ways do you think it has influenced your writing to be based in Hawaii? But obviously, I won't ask you about your accent unless you want to get into it. But being based from the continental 48, how is being in Hawaii, do you think, or maybe it hasn't, but I think it's an interesting question. How do you think it's influenced your writing to be on the island now?
Well, at first, I was bound and determined never to write about it because being here was so special to me, and I just didn't think it I didn't think I wanted to write about it at all. And I kind of found that it wasn't really a choice. It was just working its way in there. Sometimes you don't write about something while you're living it. You write it after the fact. This is something that I'm doing that I am writing about as I'm doing it, which I haven't necessarily done in the past. Usually, your present life sort of fades to the background. And I find that people write about the past or the future, but I'm writing about right now. Um, but yeah, I grew up in Appalachia and I never um, thought that I would end up out here. I probably wouldn't have came, but fate kind of brought me out here. And once it did bring me out here, I realized that I liked it, and there was a lot of work to be done here, and I feel like it's extremely important work. For me, the preservation of nature is very, very important to me. Um, and I think people here still have that as a value. And so for me, they mean everything. And there's really nothing that's more important than that. Um, as far as my writing, in some ways it's suffered, and in some ways it's flourished. It's suffered a little bit because I'm by myself a lot. I live a pretty solitary life out here, which is fine. But, writing is primarily a means to communicate your story. Uh, so you must write with your reader in mind. And I have got so used to dialoguing with myself that I feel my writing has suffered. It's a closed loop almost where I've been so withdrawn to myself and so absorbed in my work and in nature. But the quality of my images and my imagination and uh my self-assurance has really increased tenfold being out here. So for just like everything in life, we're gave one gift and then in some other areas we're hindered. And you just have to that's where your art comes from, because I feel like in my writing, there is this feeling of remove. There is this feeling of restraint. There is this feeling of loneliness. And you can be a great writer or a great actor, but until you have really experienced loneliness, I don't think you can really write about it. That's one thing that um, I think you have to just really feel is grief and loneliness, and we've all felt it. So yeah, uh, I think that comes through in my writing. I'm very withheld in my writing about emotions, but it's not from a selfish standpoint. It's because that is an expression of grief and of knowledge and of growth. So my writing can be a little quieter in that regard. And it's something that I would just say, if it's for you, maybe read it alongside some of the other pieces, maybe read it. I don't want to do like an artist statement, but if it's speaking to you, uh, you've probably felt it.
I love that. I don't think that your writing suffer like, just in my, like, humble appraisal, I don't think it suffers. I think there's something really interesting about restraint and tension. Something one of my co-hosts taught me is that, like, especially in magic, this is really important, like, you need to have tension
Mm-hmm.
between the polarities. And so I think that going too into emotionality or too into kind of like that stoic, waspy, kind of like no emotion. I think both are.
Yeah,
I would say both are wrong. You want to
both
have
are
it there,
wrong.
but
Yeah.
subtle. and but feeling like you want the tension, you want the tension to exist. So I mean, maybe I just identify with you, Dickie, because I'm in a similar situation
Mhm.
where I'm alone a lot. I spend most of my time alone. I boss a couple people around during the week, but most of the time I'm alone. So
Mhm.
I understand. It's like it's very solitary, can be very lonely, and you do have to kind of know what that is, I think, to also dialogue. I think you touched on that, like dialogue with yourself.
Yeah.
And I think that actually in that, even though you're saying it kind of it's a like it hermetically seals you off maybe from
Mm.
the audience, I actually my best some of my most interesting ideas for the show, for all the other shows that I've done, have come from those periods of like sort of inner reflexivity.
Yeah. It will. It's a give and a take. It yeah, for sure. And I mean, I like a lot of action in my stories too. And on a positive note, Hawaii is a wonderful place for sportsmen. And some people come to the Big Island and they're bored to death, but I never was one of them because there's a lot to do here. There's sailing, there's sightseeing, there's hunting if you like, and I do. Um, I mean, there's definitely stuff to do, and that that has helped my writing for sure because it's like just claiming your body and trying new things, adventure seeking. Sure, we'll call it that. Yeah, I kind of adventure seek out here a little bit. And I think that's cool, especially in the genre writing, because I feel like that's a big part of it. And it to so if I were writing a scene and I'm in a small boat on the ocean, I now know what that feels like. So there's been some practical things about being out here that's helped my writing for sure. Give me more to write about.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree. Like experiential wisdom is so important. Not, I'm not saying for writing. I'm for me at least. I'm saying as like a kind of knowledge of how those things work. So I would take those things like that experience of what you're saying, like sailing in the boat, and then I would apply that to like what I would call sadhana or like my spiritual practices. So I would like use that visualization to try and like get myself into a place to like do higher practices or higher thinking or
Mhm.
higher order kind of like a relational if you want to say just Kabbalah, we'll put Buddhism aside for a second, but we'll say Kabbalah. So
Mhm.
I would use that experience to sort of relate to like the Sephirah, like see what I see in my mind's eye, and like trying to understand it and map it out. So I appreciate everything that you just said. Now I'm going to ask you a question that I've never discussed on the show with anyone. So it's a Dickie exclusive.
All right.
Hawaiian food. Do you like it?
Hell yes, I like it. There's
Okay,
not
awesome.
anything better than this damn Hawaiian food, and the potlucks are so good.
I love mochiko chicken. I'll stay on the record.
Yes. I didn't like it at first. I'm not gonna sit here and lie to you, I didn't. At first,
Well,
I thought, "I don't know if this is for me," but when I started preparing it and going to the potlucks, nah, it's so freaking good.
I'm so glad you said that because I was worried. I was like, well, you're from the South or Appalachia, and so like, chicken, you don't want to like start a fight with someone that's like has a history with fried chicken, right? Like an American especially. So
Yeah.
I do like mochiko chicken for the, as I said, but yeah, I of course I feel like even though I'm not Hawaiian, I'm kind of honorary Hawaiian because of my
That's sick.
background. And so, yeah, I love Hawaiian food too, and it really does speak to me in like a that weird way that it's kind of a blend of different things, and you can see very recent additions with like older, kind of more traditional ideas, and I think like if you're looking at it from like a cultural anthropology or just like a I don't know witness to the world, we'll say we won't even say like academic, but like
Mhm.
a witness to like creation. That I think that's a really interesting sort of standpoint.
Yeah. I mean, the food here is so very, very, very important. That's a big part of what I do with myself. Sure, we have orchids on this farm, whatever, that keeps the lights on. But what we also do, there's really not no we, there's me, I'm doing. but I don't own this farm, but I work this farm. Um, but what we all try to do is grow as much food as we can so that we can redistribute that food here. We don't have to bring in food from the other islands or whatever. And it's just a ongoing project. And yeah, I mean, it's just every culture is like that. You know, if you really want to understand and you want to have appreciation, you need to get involved with the preparation and the meals. You need to get involved with that. And so for me, uh, that has been something that I've been so blessed to do, is just try to grow things because we're able to do it. We're able to put a box of fruit together and take it to the neighbor. Like it's incredible. It's a gift. It really is.
Yeah, I totally agree. It is such a gift, like agriculture. Like you can see like how people would do that in the past in historical time and sort of like be like, oh, the world is actually good. Kind of reaffirms a lot of like it's very positivistic. It's very like life affirming in a way. Um, but I want to ask you, do you have any stories that you don't mind sharing about any specific like I know I was thinking tarot when you were speaking, like how important that is. Like my dad's from Indonesia, but ethnic
Oh,
Chinese.
wow.
So that's a really important food stuff for us. Like
Oh, yes.
it goes in a lot of desserts, it goes in a lot of we everything pretty much. So if there's a specific plant or uh,
Mm-hmm.
fruit tree that you particularly like, I don't want to say identify with, but
Mm-hmm.
maybe feel a kinship with. I think that's an interesting way to posit it. If you don't mind sharing, I'd love to hear anything.
See, this is how come I decided to do this podcast with you because this is the questions that I like. So thank you. Yes, Jen, I do. When it comes to the tarot, the calo, that's the one for me. For many different reasons. I love to see uh the field of tarot. I love to see uh the when they put the irrigation into it. It's incredible. It's a healthy food, very, very healthy. Um, there's just everything to love about it. And I was blessed to go down to a site here. I'm not going to say where it is because we don't necessarily do that, but it's a little land shelf. And it is had all the tarot patches and everything like it used to be. It just needed to be weeded and it needed water badly. It needed to have the spring irrigated uh so that the patches could be full again. And so I spent about 2 weeks working on that, weeding it all out by hand, cutting the jungle off around it. And I can show if anybody wants to see pictures of it, I've got pictures. But to clean up this historical site because it is so very, very important. And yeah, so a plant for me, it's definitely taro for the Big Island.
I love that you said tarot. I was hoping that you would. I was like, I hope I'm not so far off on this, but thank you, and thank you, Dickie, for saying that. That was very kind. I'm glad that I asked a good question. Well, I think my general idea for like when you were going to come on, when we were deciding like planning it, I wanted to ask you a lot about Hawaii, specifically because I know
Hmm.
obviously you do this job on a farm and it
Hmm.
is I understand in a smaller way that it is all encompassing and it is very much it's very as we said, it's very transformative. But I also think that it's not just personally transformative. My kind of thinking is that we are engaging with like what is pop or maybe more
Hmm.
called the geo-ontological relationships, meaning that like
Hmm.
the relationships with place, but not just with place, with like the mountains, maybe
Hmm.
that is also like maybe there are spirits of the mountain. Like this is a very old idea, is that like a mountain will have a grandfather or a grandmother spirit inside of
Hmm.
it or as it. So the mountain itself can have like a quote unquote soul or spirit that is also represented more
Yeah.
broadly.
Yes.
So, yeah, I think gardening, I think farming in, like, a good way, if you're, like, doing it in right relations, I think that
Mhm.
absolutely you are cultivating the land and the spirits, and you are bringing them back to life. I know this is, like, a very important concept, right now because people are going through a lot of I would say there's a lot of spiritual turmoil because of the like,
Oh, yes.
technology and everything, and I think this is actually a good way. People always wanna talk about, like,
Mhm.
returning to the land, and I think that there's nothing more transformative than, like, actually building a relationship with that land.
Oh, yeah. Agree. I don't know if I'll be here for the rest of my life, but as long while I am here, it pleases me to go to bed at night and know that there's at least some plots of land here in this world that are left alone. I know that how that sounds, but it does. It pleases me at night to lay down and lay my head at night and think, it's a small thing to do. And some of it just involves just being on it. And there's other things, but just taking care of it and just being present. And yeah, so I don't know if I'll be here the rest of my life, but I'm pleased and blessed to be here. It's given me a home and it's given me a purpose. And yeah, so I'm trying. In my class, I'm taking horticulture classes while I'm here, which you can do, or you don't necessarily need to do because your neighbors will teach you. Trust and believe they will. Um, or you can dive in and do a program, which I'm doing. And they don't hold nobody's hand in there. We are all learning Hawaiian, and I'm very blessed to do that. So, yes.
Well, maybe I'll have to do a title as a pun on mahalo or aloha or something. Well, I'll think about it. But, I want to you touched on this twice, and I actually did mean to respond to it the first time, but since you brought it up a second
Mhm.
time, I'm gonna respond to it now. You brought up this idea of being present on the land as it is, rather than thinking in a futurist or in a historical way. And so for
Mhm.
me, I think this is like what you just said now and then before, that is kind of the primordial lesson, in my opinion. That is kind of like what we should be as people is like present where we are on the land right now,
Mhm.
rather than and that's hard because like then you want to because then you sort of I'm not maligning utopian or dystopian fiction in any way. I'm
Yeah.
simply saying that there is something about consciousness relational to time when time is made
Mhm.
present rather than future or past. And we sort of
Mhm.
become quote unquote more human in that process.
Yes, that's right. Yes. This farm don't give me a choice to dwell on the future, dwell on the past. Every day, uh, you have to keep it moving, and it's what's going on for today. Of course, I have to record keep and plan for the future, but at the end of the day, living on the land like this, it's immediacy. Um, but you do feel the past all around you. Some places you'll feel it more than others here, and you know exactly what I mean. But yeah.
Well, I think that's a maybe a good segue into are there how should I phrase this? Have you encountered spirits on the island? Do you have any stories that you wanna talk about them in a respectful way? We won't go, this is I'm not
I
a
haven't I
okay,
haven't experienced that in my life.
okay.
Now, when I lived on the little knob that I grew up on, I have a 20 plus year relationship with that. But here, if it's not revealed itself to me at this time. Maybe later though.
It might be interesting if I say this, and I do believe this, so this is my experience directly. This is not
Mhm.
being speculative. I
Mhm.
personally think Hawaii is special, and I think that people can pass over. I don't think everywhere people can just move on. I think there's
Mhm.
reasons for that. Like, there's, historical and, like, architectural and geographic reasons,
Mhm.
but I think in Hawaii, there is kind of a the veil is thin, but that also means that like the material bodies pass over into the spiritual very easily, and maybe
Mhm.
they don't get locked into the spiritual. Like ghosts aren't really
Mhm.
the person, right? Like they're just like a shade or a shadow or a sliver
Mhm.
of what someone was rather than who they are. So
Mhm.
I like to think of it as like Hawaii. Because I never had any like crazy ghost encounters, and my my family's very very superstitious. So I
Yeah.
never did there, but and I've had them in my life, but I always felt like it was just such a wild kind of, as you were kind of alluding to, like, untamed place. I like to joke
Mhm.
because volcanoes are associated in Buddhism with, what is colloquially known, if you follow me on Twitter, as the sky wives or the dakinis.
Mm. Mhm.
So there's an idea that they can actually, like, not take in, like, a bad way, I mean, like, when people are on their journey, they can sort of act as guides into
Mhm.
the realms of samsara. So I love that idea that it's kind of,
Mhm.
liminal, but not
Mhm.
inherently haunted.
Yeah. I mean, if you read, neighbors will tell you here, um, and old timers will tell you ghost stories. They like it. I'm from Appalachia. We like ghost stories too. There's some famous Hawaiian ghost stories, the night marchers, of course. And then there's the one about where you're going up the river, or excuse me, you're going up the mountain, and they tell you not to look on the left path because that one's for ghosts. Keep your eyes forward to the right. That's a famous Hawaiian ghost story. Um, yeah, I mean, even if I had, I wouldn't say. You know what I mean? You know what I mean.
I know what
Even
you
if
mean.
I had
I
seen
know what you
something
mean.
here, I wouldn't say it.
I I like that. Honestly, I like that. I know that people are gonna be like, "Oh, it's a podcast, you have to say," but you don't have to say, because I don't know what to say. People ask me sometimes when I go on other shows, and I'll be like, "My practices are private." Not that they're private, I'll
Mhm.
I'll discuss, like, metaphysics, I'll discuss, like, what I do, which is very simple, really. It's just mala
Mhm.
recitation, like mantra recitation with a rosary and, like, a little
Mhm.
puja here and there. Um, but it's very simple, and but I don't talk about, like, the deities I do or anything like that.
Mhm.
That's just my business. So I completely and I don't talk about, spiritual experiences very often. Now I did when Scott Laudati came on because I was like,
Ooh.
"Oh."
Yeah.
Well, I was like, he shared one, and I was like, I'll just explain this thing that sort of propelled me into podcasting, and I've never told it
Mhm.
before. So I was like, okay. But usually, I'm just what I'm trying to say in this really long-winded way. I apologize. Is I understand some things are just meant for you and for
Mhm.
reconcile, and maybe you'll tell the story later. Maybe you'll tell the story in like a parafictional way, where you'll write in little
Mhm.
elements of it where nobody would know. It's just you, right?
Mhm.
But you'll write in true elements of the like your experiences, but you don't necessarily say that they are. So I appreciate that greatly. And for the record, I did not mean to say that Hawaii has no ghosts, of
Mhm.
course. Honolulu, Chinatown definitely has ghosts. They have a whole
Yeah, it does.
ancestor temple,
I
right?
think
So like
so.
I can't say that. I can't say that the ghosts don't exist at all. Of course they do. But I think that it's less dense. I think this is an interesting idea.
Mhm.
I think the continental, like America, including Canada and Mexico, obviously, those places are very dense. It's a lot of
Mhm.
population, it's a lot of, like, concrete, and those things actually there's ideas that those things actually sort of slow the movement of
Mhm.
souls or spirits into the next world.
What do they
That's
call
what
that? The stone tapes? Is that what that is, the stone tapes?
I think so, actually. I think so. Something like that. I just
Mhm.
did a episode on Gurdjieff on someone else's on Occult Rejects, this other, YouTube show that I go on sometimes, and I
Oh,
don't know any
yeah.
and I don't know anything about Gurdjieff really, but,
Um,
he
I've
had
read
the
his books,
you?
but
Okay.
I don't know anything
I'm sure you
about
know
his
more than me.
actual practice. I admit I don't.
His actual practice was really just making people into initiates or adepts or,
Mhm.
spiritual he would just call it doing the work as I understand it. But he
Mhm.
talked about this idea of, like, the sieve, like, the earth functions as, like, a spiritual sieve for the souls, and so
Yeah.
you require well, he said that you require sort of catastrophic events to, um, mm, overflow the sieve so then, the souls can be reborn in samsara and then sort of live out their karmas in the world, just like a Buddhist would believe, but we wouldn't
Mm-hmm.
say that. You don't need a catastrophe. Because people are I believe people are very agential and they can choose to do quote unquote the work, if you want to use Gurdjieff's language. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't think
Well, I
people
mean,
reason
I'm a
that. I don't know.
Gnostic.
Oh,
I
you
might
are?
as well just
Okay.
say it. We're 2 hours into the podcast, and I've never said what I believe. I'm a Gnostic Christian. I was raised
Awesome.
Christian all my life. My dad was a pastor all my life. Yeah, so for me, I don't uphold no man as a teacher. I think we're all each other's teachers, you know?
Maybe that was my failure as a podcast host to not ask you what you believe, but
No,
I think it's interesting if it arises organically, especially with you,
I
because I think
agree.
that's
I agree.
what we decided to do, more casual, right?
Yeah.
Well, I would also consider myself agnostic. This is no surprise to anyone
Mhm.
who listens to the show.
No, it does
I am a
not.
I
No
am a
surprise. Yeah.
No surprise, right? But I am a tantric
Mhm.
Buddhist. I'm a very traditional, like, yeah, I talk about magic and I have like a Twitter persona,
Mhm.
and that is also me. It's not like some other person, that is me. And
Yeah.
like, all my quote unquote occult or esoteric knowledge, like that is really me. That's not like me looking at a book or anything. That's just like me
Yeah.
discussing things or talking about something that I think is interesting. But I am a Gnostic in terms of cosmology. So,
Mhm.
and I think a lot of Americans actually are privately. And
Privately, yeah.
yeah. And I think that it actually Gnosticism makes a lot more sense. I'm not putting down me or like anyone's like Christian or more orthodox ideas of the world.
Mhm.
But I think Gnosticism does actually make sense as a human centric, like you were saying, like I believe that also, like no living man is really our higher order teacher, but we can
Mhm.
all function as each other's teachers, like through dialogue, through things like this, through sharing what we've experienced and know. But also fiction can do that too if it's good. It can be a hermeneutic to lead
Yeah,
people
that's
onto
true.
higher ideas.
That's true. It's been my constant companion for a big portion of my life, and I've learned a lot about life reading. There was a time where I felt guilty about how much time I spent reading. But then I said to myself, well, you like it, and it's meditative, and I think it's fine. I mean, I like it, and I'm almost 40 years old. I'm not liable to change at this point. I'm going to read, 3 and 4 hours a day, no matter what. So it's a daily thing for me. Sometimes I do feel guilty about how much time I spend writing and reading. Um, but everything in life is a balance. We have to make choices, and for me, reading is something that I really love. It's a part of my identity, as is writing.
I so I do want to ask you, there's this kind of a two-part but sort of separate from each other, but you can tackle it in whatever way. So in the sort of to go back a little bit to the Gnosticism, I want to actually
Mhm.
ask you if you're comfortable with it. Like what would you say are your primary core ideas of the world? And then maybe part two is a fiction question, is like, what does Dickie enjoy reading? Like, what did you enjoy reading
Mhm.
growing up that was like, this is what I love? Or maybe it was many things. Like for me, it was a lot
Mhm.
of things, but I can pinpoint like with specificity certain things,
Mhm.
obviously, that were more influential. So for whatever that is for you, I'd love to hear that.
Okay. What do I so it's like a three-part question. So I'll start with the first. What do I fundamentally believe? I believe that this world is it's the physical, and for me, the spiritual definitely supersedes the physical. I mean, the physical is important, and never remove yourself from it totally. That's a mistake too. Be in your body and stuff. But for me, what really matters to me, it's almost like like karma that somebody, some people have called it karmic. Uh, but for me, it's the development of my soul, and that's my that's my purpose on this earth is to try to become a complete soul. Um, and there are times that that's a challenge. It's different for every person. We're all doing it. We're all seeking meaning. It's not complicated. But for me, that's how I go through my life. As a Christian, I have a responsibility to the people around me. Um, but I also think that I'm different from some Christians because I don't believe that my reality, my path to uh, salvation is necessarily going to be the same as yours. Your reality is your reality. Your experience is your experience. For me, being raised, reading the Bible and in church, that's my reality. That's written into me. Um, so that's what I practice. But for others, they have a completely different reality. And yeah, so there's that. What do I like to read right now? I mostly like to read fantasy just because it is so imaginative and the scope is so wonderful. And you also learn so much. Some of these fantasy books are just chock full of real, actual knowledge, you know? Um,
Absolutely.
it's pretty cool. It's a challenge to get through a 2,000-page book, with the different narratives, challenging books. And when you're done with them, it feels great, and you feel like you've entered a whole other world, and that's what keeps me doing it. When I was a kid, I would read anything. It did not matter what it was. If it was laying around, I was picking it up and reading it, and I still kind of do that. Um, of course, I have things I like more than others. When I was a kid, I'd love to sit in my papa's office and read all of his John Grisham novels and Harlan Ellison, Elroy. I still love those kind of books like Michael Crichton. And I'll tell you right now, if you're going to be a fiction writer, you better start reading those books. Dan Simmons, stuff like that. It's going to help your writing. It's going to be the backbone of your writing. I went to school, for English. I read the classics, all the things we read in school. I revisit those as often as I can because you see something new every time, Uh I like popular fiction. There's really not anything to read that I don't like. I like all of it. So it was kind of a non-answer.
No, it's great. Eclecticism is definitely an answer, in my opinion. I think it's an answer. I think to like a bit of everything and to be okay, flexible, to be okay with different things and not be so locked into just one worldview. I think that's a very good way to approach the world in general, much less media or fiction. So it definitely, what I'm saying is definitely was an answer. And I love that you love fantasy, obviously. I love fantasy.
Mhm.
And I agree, but I totally agree with you. Like, well, this is something that's come up on the show many times is like if you talk to people in certain magical societies or magical orders, you'll have certain names come up. So, Lovecraft, number one. Now, I know this is a perennial argument on Twitter. Was Lovecraft a magician or not? Most magicians would say that he was. So if you're asking like an occult person, he definitely was talking about something real. Not necessarily real, but magically real. Like you can utilize his system, and many people do, for magic. Then you have people like Robert E. Howard, who obviously his like Hyboria and Conan. And so there's another kind of faction who don't like the Lovecraft people, very interestingly, who also believe that that kind of cosmology is also magical, but maybe in a more Gnostic way, meaning that it's more speculative wisdom science rather than like a practical, oh, we're going to utilize this abyssal deity to do this thing in the world. And then you have people who, like, okay, like Ursula Le Guin. That's a great kind of example because most people don't know this. Like, she was a master Kabbalist. So if you read her work, she'll call it Taoism. And I'm not saying that that's not an element of her work,
Mhm.
but if you're good at Kabbalah, and I'm pretty good,
Mm.
you can actually read her work with a kind of Kabbalistic mindset and kind of pick the ideas right out and map them to the tree. I haven't really done this in a long time, but when I was
Mhm.
a kid, I really was like very fascinated with her and like Peter Carroll, obviously RIP, but he definitely was talking a lot about this idea of like parafiction, metafiction, how they relate to each other, and how they can be utilized for, well, specifically for chaos magic, but obviously chaos magic is just like a kind of plug and play system where you just utilize whatever system that you like and then you put it into the greater sort of religious or magical framework that you practice. So there's a deep relationship between fantasy specifically and and like both religion and magic. And maybe you could even say like beyond those two things, maybe you could actually say like it's a way to experience God. I think that certain kinds of fiction, and then I'm not just talking about like transcendent reading experiences, because that can be true, obviously. But I mean, the sort of ideas contained within it can be very not just personally transformative, but they can actually introduce you to whole new kind of like hyperspace kingdoms, like different sort of world archipelagos. Like you can imagine the possibilities that the world of physical world can be.
That's right.
And then through the realization of the physical, you can actually apply that to spiritual concerns. Sorry, I didn't mean to go on so long about that, but it's a
No,
really
I
great point.
I agree. It's real in the mind's eye before it's real in life. So the
Correct.
power of your tongue, that's very important. Never speak ill of yourself. Bear in mind
I'll
that
try that.
you're creating that, you know. Oh, I
Yes.
just mean like the general you. Like how you said the reading,
Mhm,
you're creating a reality. Yeah,
mhm.
you are, for sure. You have to guard yourself intentionally and be mindful of what you're putting into your intellect and spirit because yeah, it definitely is a very real thing.
No, I agree. I do tend to self-deprecate, Dickie. I'm like a true this is not true of all millennials, but I think about millennial men. We do tend to rely on self-deprecating humor probably it's probably a negative quality in general. It can sound humble, and I don't, and for me I definitely mean it in like a way that I don't really think I know that much, but I'm high in inquisition, like I am curious about the world. So
Uh-huh.
even if I'm a quote unquote artard, I still can go out and have dialogues and have discourse with people that I don't, even if I don't know their material that well, because I'm curious about it. But I do think that we've sort of like adopted this humor, and we'll call it ironic, but it's not very
Mhm.
useful because it's like you're saying, like a true magician would know would be more like aligned with what you're saying. Like, what are you putting out into the world? What are you saying about yourself? And it goes beyond like hyperstition. Like, what kind of quote unquote auto fiction story you're telling about yourself, which can be both real and not real, like both true and not true. And that's okay. I'm
Mhm.
not putting that down, but I'm saying that we should be careful. And I agree with that because you don't want to put something negative into the ether or into words, which are fundamentally magic. Like words are very much.
Yeah, I think it was a on response pod, David Gladfelder, he constantly says words are sigils.
Yes.
And I loved when he said that. And I very much agree. But I wasn't like chastising you. I was just using like the general you, like
Uh,
when you read these books, they're very much becoming a part of you. So, and then what you speak out into the world, it's very much real.
Very much real. I didn't take it personally, Dickie. I just want to say that but I clocked myself. I was like,
Yeah.
okay, I definitely do this. Like I'm gonna implicate myself and call myself on it because I'm definitely guilty. So but I agree that it's very useful. It's much more magically useful if you are more prescient, more present, more discerning with your words, so you're sort of synthesizing and not producing excess.
Yeah, that's definitely a part of it for sure.
I love that you said that you mentioned that words are sigils. This is definitely true, and this is something that comes up. Well, I reference it a lot. I don't know if it comes up all naturally, but I reference it. Is Austin Osman Spare because there is sort of no greater 20th century example of someone who was talking about sigil magic, poetry, and what is reality, like quote unquote meta reality, than him. Like
Mhm.
you want to say the founder of like all contemporary magical ideas, pretty much most people could trace it back to Austin Osman Spare.
I can't
So
lie to you. I've
that's for
not
sure.
heard I don't know the name. Could you?
Okay, I'll send you something when we're done. I'll send you
Okay.
something and you can peruse it. You can discern it and then you
Hmm.
can tell me what you think of it. He mixed he was kind of like a early 20th century multimedia project. So he would write these
Okay.
kind of magical books, but they weren't like magic like how people think like it's like light a candle, like say this. No. His things were like doodles,
Hmm.
illustrations, kind of fragment poetry, concrete poetry, like poetry as sigils. That's what his whole thing was. He was like the Ars Notoria, the
Mhm.
magic of the letters. I'm going to sort of remix this in a postmodern or slightly postmodern, maybe modernist way, and I'm going to change it from the, old fogies from the 1600s, and we're going to, make something that is aesthetic and suiting our bohemian times. So
Mhm.
anyways, I'll send you something and you can tell me what you think. But I think it's interesting that this sort of nexus point between writers and magicians, or writers and yeah, I like that, writers and magicians. I think that's always been sort of a meeting place. Maybe they're not the same people. Sometimes they are, but I think a lot of times the mysticism especially converges where people are creative because I think they're drawing from very much the same place or similar places.
Yeah. Oftentimes they are.
Well, okay, so let's let me ask you about colors. Let's end on this. A note on
Okay.
colors, since this is sort of where we started. I mean, it started in DM at least.
Yeah.
What colors do you particularly like? Do you have anything that you don't mind sharing that is particularly significant for you? And is there anything that you associate, we'll say, in the greater cosmology? So if we live in, like, okay, we'll use Gurdjieff as an example since you've read it.
Mhm.
We live in this constantly changing, insane landscape, Hawaii notwithstanding.
Mhm.
Is there any colors that you particularly relate to the changing of the time? Like how we're moving into sort of a new cycle, fourth turning, if you want to call that.
Ooh, yeah, that's a great question. Wow. I always think I know the answer to this. Every time I think I know, the answer changes. But I almost want to say that one's difficult. There's a part of me that wants to say purple. Just because it has it's really neither masculine nor feminine, purple isn't, you know? Um, it's something that is regal and, feels like you could see it, in the past, it's exotic. For me, I feel like I feel purple for this year.
So you might be interested. I mean, I don't know if you'll find this interesting, but I agree with you. I think purple is a great choice. I think don't doubt yourself at all, Dickie. I think that's a stalwart choice. It's interesting because purple is a very dense color. That's how it's
Mhm.
considered in Kabbalah anyway. It's a very dense color. And people might be surprised to hear this, but it's actually a solar color. It's actually considered to be the heart of the sun or heart of Tiferet.
Hmm.
So it is the sort of the color of beauty, the color of vitality, the color of present, like being present in presencing, sort of like the greater reality, God, if you want to call it that, like being aware that quote unquote he exists in the world. Like in the world,
Mhm.
I'm saying through our consciousness, obviously, not just like
Mhm.
you know, in phenomena, but in more ontological terms. But and purple also, as you're saying, it kind of is a post. It definitely has a aeonic quality, purple, because
Yeah.
yeah, it's a, as I said, it's a dense color, it's a powerful color, and it very much represents materiality, but not materiality as in lust for materiality, but rather appreciation and
Mhm.
sort of tenderness, truth
Mhm.
towards the materiality, like recognizing what matter is and like that our lives are brief and that we need to, I think you spoke on this very well, probably better than me, well, definitely better than me, but we have to cultivate like the life that we want, and also
Mhm.
we have to cultivate the self that we want.
Mhm. And purple feels like that to me. It feels
Yeah.
very individualistic. If you
Mhm.
have a friend when you're in elementary school and they choose purple, you know what they're saying with that. It's a individual, a proud pride. I feel like we're moving, and purple feels complete too in some ways, like how being a Pisces feels complete because it's the last of the zodiac. Purple kind of feels like that too, and I feel like that's how things sort of feel like as if they're moving towards something this year. Maybe I just feel that way, but I feel like others have said it too. And I was worried about being on a podcast because I'm much better with written communication than I ever have been with verbal. Um, I feel shy to speak, and I've always been that way all my life. It's hard for me to gather my thoughts, and um, I like to listen better than I do talk. But at some point, you have to speak up for yourself, at least some. So you don't want to set yourself apart unless you do want to. That's perfectly fine. But for me, I'm so open that I don't want to just never, speak to anybody and just speak just through my writing. So, but I'm glad that I overcame that because that's how you grow as a person. You don't just feel uncomfortable with something and let that be the end of it.
Well, I don't want to tease you too much, but I have been a couple people's podcast first. So I like that. I kind of like that positionality, no pun, but I do think it's funny. Because I actually started out the exact same, Dickie. I've talked about
Hmm.
this before, is that I never I didn't have any social media presence before 2020. I I was I'm a very quiet person. Like, I'm not quiet necessarily, like, I have like, I'm known for, kind of like having a not a temper, but, like, I'll challenge people
Are you
if
an
I feel the
Aries
right
by
to.
chance?
I'm a Sagittarius, but
Oh, okay, that makes even more sense. Okay,
right.
cool.
But because I kind of my arrow is my truth, as the pun goes, right? So,
Yes.
yeah, I like to fire my arrow at certain things if I feel like I can rectify it or correct it or like reveal a deeper truth, like
Mhm.
reveal the husk beneath, or like reveal what is beneath the husk. So,
Mhm.
but I really didn't. I'm still not 100% comfortable, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I love running the show. I think I've learned so much as a person. I've grown so much. I've met some really incredible people, like as I mentioned, one of my co-hosts, him and I have become like quite good friends.
Mhm.
And it's weird because I'm not really used to that either. Like it's not just him, but it's like there's multiple other people from the show, like Dustin, like as I said, I was like so glad to be able to meet him. Like you, I feel
Mhm.
like it was a kismet. I love that you use that word. It was like a great
Mhm.
way to open the episode. And I feel like purple, to me, I think you relate it perfectly. Like I think that's a great articulation of what purple is. It's an individuated color. Because the idea
Mhm.
for the Aeon is that we actually move through the mass as individuated people. So we
Mhm.
learn to speak maybe for the first time. Like we're very close in age. I'm not, I won't say, like, I won't ask you what your thing is, but people know that I'm an Earth Dragon. So I'm born in 88. Basically, I didn't learn to speak until I was like until I was like 35.
Mhm.
And through the show, really. Through not through this
Mhm.
show particularly, but through, like, being invited on other people's that's how I started podcasting, was I would always get
Mhm.
asked, people would be like, "Oh, come talk about Tantra or come talk about Kabbalah," and I'd be like, "Okay,
Mhm.
yes," because I was really hungry at the
Yeah.
beginning to discuss those ideas because I had never
Mhm.
that was, like, totally secret, private, like, bad, it
Yeah.
felt very transgressive at times, and so I was
I
very
know what you
excited to.
mean.
Right. So I feel like I feel really blessed that you came on. I'm really glad that you kind of like were able to overcome the any hesitation. And I want to say that
Mhm.
please come back. I'll have better questions for you next time. We can talk about more deeper mystical ideas or whatever you want. But
Mhm.
thank you so much, Dickie. I really appreciate it. And I want you to, if you want to, plug your work, your socials, and anything that you want to, like anything that you
Mhm.
want, I want you to plug that, and I will include it in the show notes as I do for everybody. And I'll have to make sure that the title card or the keynote, as I call it, as you know, because you always do a little cry face when I tell you that it's great keynote. Um,
Yeah.
but I'll make sure it's purple, or at least purple in orientation. So thank you again.
Alright. Okay, cool. Yeah, just, I'm looking for and have possibly found a publisher for some novellas that I've written. Those were written very quickly. It all came out very quickly. Which is to me, that's usually a good sign when I'm writing. Um, I'm very proud of them. So that's on the horizon, and socials are a high tower site. And as of right now, that's only social media that I'm on. I do use Substack, and that is a Prince of the Pawns. And yeah, just please do, if you've listened to this and you think you might have an essay that would be a good fit for APCON, please send it in. I'd love to read it. And thank you, Jen.